Hi guys, welcome to video number 6 of What Am I Drinking? So today I have a surprise for you. I've got a Tinto Pesquera. It's a Spanish wine from Ribera del Duero. So we're going to Spain today. It's a 2012 Reserva. If anybody is a Manchester United fan, I'm sure you'd be interested to know that Sir Alex Ferguson was a huge fan of this wine, according to the wine enthusiast. Alex Ferguson was pretty much in love with this wine. He often went to the bodega in Spain and bought himself a few cases of the 1992, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm not a fan of Manchester United, so I'm probably hoping that it's not a very good wine, because I'm pretty sure that Sir Alex Ferguson didn't have much taste in wine. But we'll have to wait and see. So it's a Tempranillo grape. Tempranillo is pretty indigenous to Spain and also to Portugal. Tempranillo is also called Tinto Roriz in Spanish, so you can also see Tinto Roriz on the bottle. Ribera del Duero is a very famous region. It was considered Region of the Year funnily enough, in 2012. It was considered Region of the Year for, I think it was Wine Enthusiast magazine as well. There are some spectacular wines that come from Ribera del Duero, namely Vega Sicilia. Everybody knows Vega Sicilia, very expensive, super duper wine that competes with some of the top Bordeaux wines. Also, Dominio de Pingus is another beautiful wine from Ribera del Duero. Many of us know Rioja. Ribera del Duero is I would say, a similar-ish style as Rioja, very full-bodied, very rich wines. A lot of oak. Generally, they like to age their wines in oak, the Spanish. Alejandro Fernandez is the producer, a very famous guy, very well liked in Spain. So much so that the village where this wine is actually produced is called Pesquera del Duero. That's how much they idolize this Alejandro Fernandez, who's a super producer. But let's get to the tasting. Immediately on the nose, immediately you notice that it's been aged in oak for quite some time. So this is a Reserva. Now in Spain they have a classification, a maturation classification, or how much they age the wine. So if you see joven on the wine, it means young. If you see crianza, it usually means it has a little bit of age on it. Then there's Reserva, which they usually age for a minimum of 2 to 3 years in oak barrels and also in the bottle. And then there's Gran Reserva. Now Gran Reserva is the top of the pops. Gran Reserva is aged a minimum of 3 to 4 years in oak in the bottle before being released. And it's usually only made in the best years. Sometimes, unfortunately, sometimes Gran Reservas are a little bit over oaked, a bit too much oak. So many a time I often like, or I prefer Reserva. But let's see what this one's all about. So 2012 is pretty old. Having said that, it hasn't been released too long ago. As you can imagine, if it's been aged for 2 to 3 years in oak and the bottle, then it wasn't released till minimum 2015, 2016. I suggest decanting the wine, so I decanted this for an hour. That is, I would suggest a minimum of 30 minutes, but I've decanted this for an hour to give it that little bit more time to get in touch with the oxygen. It needs oxygen, because unfortunately what happens is with all this oak, at the beginning on the nose, and you already get it, you get a lot of oak, a lot of vanilla, and the aromas and the flavors of vanilla are generally from oak, so coconut, vanilla, of oak flavors. And what happens is, if you don't decant it, if you don't leave it in touch with oxygen for at least half an hour, the oak flavors, so the vanilla and the coconut flavors, overpower the fruit flavors, and it becomes a little bit of a 1 or 2 dimensional wine instead of having all the fruit and different complex flavors. So I've left it for an hour. If you don't have time to decant it for an hour, a little trick is to actually mix it around in the decanter a bit. Anyway, I mean, you're mixing it in your glass. You're swirling it in your glass, so there's no harm done over there. Obviously, I separated a little bit of the sediment. It's a very powerful wine. 14% alcohol, so it's very, very rich, very full-bodied. So besides the vanilla and the coconut, I'm starting to get the fruit. So the fruit is starting to come out finally. A little bit of raspberry, a little bit of strawberry, cherry comes out. I'm also getting a little bit of tertiary and secondary flavors over here, secondary aromas. Very interesting. Lovely in the mouth. And the tannins are really there, but they're not overpowering, so it's not too young. It's definitely ready to drink. It's well integrated, the tannins, so it does give you that drying sensation in the mouth, but it doesn't annoy you. It needs food. I suggest having this with food. I'll be having it with duck, so I can't wait to pair it with a little bit of duck. It's still very elegant, so it's still very fresh. The fruit comes out and gives it that freshness. There's acidity, which probably comes from the Duero River, which is situated just alongside Ribera del Duero, of course. Interesting, you get spices now as well. It's sweet spices, so I get nutmeg, cinnamon, these baking spices, baking sweet spices. That's lovely. It's very creamy. But then the structure is very good. I could imagine to age this easily another 5, even 10 years. What's interesting is it's not a super expensive bottle, so you can probably purchase a bottle for around 30 euros. For 30 euros, I think it competes with the big boys. It can compete with some really top Bordeaux wines. If I had to be a little bit of a critic, I would say tad too much oak, a tad too much vanilla, a tad too much coconut. Maybe if I leave it in the decanter for another half an hour, the fruit comes out even more, and the coconut and the vanilla becomes more of a secondary flavor. At the moment, it's a little bit on the powerful side. But then I can also imagine with the duck, the blood, the meat, the gaminess of the duck would probably soften the oak and the vanilla flavors, and it would be probably even more interesting. The color is it's not too tawny. I would say it's more of a burgundy color, so it shows it's got age on it. But the acidity is there, the structure is there, the freshness is there, and unfortunately, Sir Alex Ferguson had very good taste in wine. Maybe not in choosing the football team, but he knows exactly what wine he should drink. Cheers to Sir Alex.